Welcome everyone to Couch Potato Diary. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for hanging out today. As always, we're presented by Sea of Dead. Head over to seaofdead403.ca for all that great Calgary swag. So yeah, it's been a minute. I've been on the radio out here in Calgary, but still wanted to get some stuff out for you guys. So honestly, I've just hit record and gonna record as much as I can, and we'll piece it all together. Again, the best that we can. So a lot to cover over the last week and a bit. Thank you guys so much for being patient. If you're listening, make sure you hit that subscribe button and leave a review. Again, I know that they've been a little all over the place timing wise. I would love to promise and tell you that it's not going to be that way. It might be still for a little bit here, but I promise I'm going to get as much out as I could for Couch Potato. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, and also you can head over to YouTube and hit subscribe and like the video as well. So let's dive right in. The Vegas Raiders are in a unique position right now as they have the #1 overall pick, and so a lot of focus is going to be on helping out and protecting the presumptive quarterback that will be the face of the franchise. But the previous face of the franchise didn't end the season on great terms, and while it does seem like cooler heads are going to prevail, that hasn't stopped some from thinking that maybe this could be a move that happens here in the offseason. And so today, we're going to look at some of the trade proposals that have been floated out on the internet and whether the Raiders should be interested even a little bit. So, looking at the trades, these are from Bleacher Report social media post that they put out. This is just going to go through 5, suggesting different trades for Maxx Crosby, and then we'll kind of break it all down once it's all kind of wrapped up. So the first one is from Baltimore, a 2026 first-round pick, which would be the 14th overall selection, a 2027 first-round pick, edge rusher Tavius Robinson, and linebacker Trenton Simpson. Overall, again, we're going to go like a bit more in depth in the end. Overall, like the picks that are a little bit higher up, like mid to high up, that they're intriguing given what could be available and everything like that in this draft, and then you get a couple of actual players coming back for it. Not that the worst one, but yeah. Up next, the Rams would be sending the Raiders a 2026 first-round pick, either number 13 from Atlanta or number 29, their own, a 2027 first-round pick, and edge rusher Byron Young for Crosby, and a third-round pick. New England, their offer would be a 2026 first, 31st overall, 2027 first, and guard Mike Onwenu, sorry. That's the offer there from the defending AFC champions. The NFC champs would want to get in on it as well. Apparently, they would be sending a first, which would be 32nd overall, a 2027 first, edge rusher Derek Hall, and safety Julian Love. And then lastly, it is from Washington, a 2026 first-round pick, which is 7th overall, 2027 first, 2027 fourth, and defensive lineman Jerjon Newton. So, a lot of it would depend on where the Raiders would want to go. Washington has the best pick, but there's a chance, if you're going that route, you're probably hoping to help the kid out. The 2 best offensive linemen are projected to go just ahead of where Washington is picking at 7. So, I view that as a gigantic need for the Raiders, obviously. Like, the offensive line, just not good enough in Vegas. Now, the weapons aren't either, and you could be in a spot to help them out, to help out Mendoza a little bit, given some pretty solid receivers in this draft. If you wanted to take one at 7, there's an opportunity there. So, it's not the worst. You could get like a Caleb Downs to help out on the defensive side, a Mekhi Lemon to help out on offense. Like, there are, obviously, at 7, there are players that are going to help you out. I think if you're looking for just the best player that is coming back, it's Byron Young from the LA Rams. And if you could convince the Rams, to give you the Atlanta pick, then all of a sudden, there's some quality players that are there. Also, looking at some of the rankings, one of them had Caleb Lamu at 17 on their big board. So if you get that 13th pick, I guess you could do this. The Washington one might be reaching, but then maybe you trade back a little bit and make that move as well. But if you're able to get a pretty solid offensive lineman with the 13th pick, while also adding Byron Young, who is a very good player as a pass rusher, maybe you are taking a half step back at the edge, but you are also significantly upgrading the offensive line. So that is the one that is intriguing. I think the best overall package, though, is the one that comes from Seattle, where it would be the 32nd overall pick, a 2027 first, Derek Hall and Julian Love. Hall and Love are players that can really solidify a defense very, very quickly. The pick isn't as good, obviously, but you are adding a bit more NFL-ready quality to your lineup. I kind of got caught a couple of times in this because, you see all the defensive players that are coming back for the Raiders. And, well, yes, the defense is a major, major issue. But I think this is where some teams have kind of hung up a little bit. Everything that the Raiders should be doing right now is to put Mendoza in the best place to succeed. So if their defense is giving up 35 points a game, then their defense is giving up 35 points a game. I think you need to protect him with a good offensive line and give him some weapons to work with. You need to put him in the best case for him to succeed. You can figure out the team stuff later. If you have to do an all-defense draft next year, then do an all-defense draft next year. But the offensive line wasn't good enough to protect for Ashton Genty to allow for him to really thrive in the way that he needs to, and they are not good enough to help Mendoza thrive in the way that he would need to. So, while yes, it would be good to help out with a Byron Young or Hall and Love, and then maybe you're adding a player in the draft defensively with a Caleb Downs or something, I think the main focus does need to be on the offensive line. And unfortunately, where some of these land, it just doesn't. I guess the one with Baltimore, I guess you could. The Rams one you could as well. You could help solidify the offensive line, but I think the focus needs to be in helping out this kid on the offense as much as possible. And I don't know if any of these really nail it. So if you are if these you call around the league and these are the best offers that are coming in, I think it's the Rams one that I would go with because of the draft quality coming back at 13 with that Atlanta pick, if that would be the pick that you could get. Because Young, I think the world of him as a pass rusher. You get probably an offensive lineman or an offensive weapon at 13, and you're starting to build things out a little bit. But honestly, none of these really blow me away. And where the Raiders are at right now, apparently, with Maxx Crosby, is he's relatively content being with Vegas. Now, you could argue that the Raiders maybe should trade him because they aren't just a Maxx Crosby away from competing. And as I mentioned, a lot of the focus needs to be on the young quarterback that is coming in. So I guess we could have that argument, but none of these make it so obvious that you need to trade a Maxx Crosby that I think any of them are worth doing. If he demands a trade, then you can go out. The Rams one's acceptable, as is the Seattle one. But neither of them are, oh my God, we need to make this move right now. How has Vegas not pulled the trigger on this already? So those are my thoughts on the proposed trades that came in on social media. What did you guys think? Anything in there really jump out to you for Maxx Crosby? And is the strategy that I laid out for the Raiders one that you agree with? Let me know in the comments, or if you are listening in podcast form, hit me up on social media. I am at Prime Time Klein. If you enjoyed this, let me know. And also, if you want it with you in a more convenient fashion, head over to Spotify or Apple Music and check out Couch Potato Diary, the podcast. Again, just search Couch Potato Diary wherever you get your pods. There are some very interesting rules being tested out in the UFL. And so I thought, that they're so interesting, we have to talk about them. So let's break down what the UFL is looking to do in their upcoming season. The UFL is definitely doing everything that a spring football league should be doing. And by that, I mean trying some stuff. And they're certainly trying some stuff with their some of the rule changes that they are implementing for the upcoming season. The big one that would get a lot of people talking if it happened in the NFL, I mean, all of these would, but no tush push is the first one that's being brought up. I can understand people's frustration with it. I think we saw this year, and we've seen over the last couple of years, it's not just oh, this is a cheat code, they can do da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. a lot of it is based on Jalen Hurts can squat a house. So, like, he has that leg drive that really helps them get it going. But even without Lane Johnson, it wasn't as effective as we've seen. And other teams have tried it, and it hasn't worked. So I don't think it's this big cheat code thing. But if you want to get rid of it because there are players who are getting hurt in this, I can understand that as well. Now we get into the fun stuff. First, 60-yard field goals are worth 4 points. This is the type of stuff I live for with these sorts of leagues where, like, yeah, they don't have a tradition to fall back on. They can just try some stuff, and it's going to, I want to check it out to see how the coaches strategize with this, how teams kind of utilize it, and how they can take advantage of these situations. So, yeah, like, we are seeing, you could have implemented this 10 years ago and no one would have changed a thing because no one's making 60-yard field goals. But we're seeing quite a few of those now in the NFL. And some guys with some booming legs getting those out there. So why not reward it? I really, really like this idea. Also, like, you'll see a lot of these coming in. The one thing that I really like is that it keeps teams in games longer, I guess, right? Like, you get you're still going to get some, but very significantly less, I guess. We're done. We're completely out of it. Because we'll talk about it in a second. Like, you can have a 9-point touchdown and a 4-point field goal, and all of a sudden, like, boom, 13 points up on the board. Where at some points it would be 10 or 11, right? So I'm very interested by this, and I like that it keeps some teams engaged a little bit longer in games. No punting from inside the 50-yard line. This one's really interesting to me. Once you cross into the other team's side of half at the 49-yard line, even if you get sacked twice and 2 holding calls, no punts, no punting allowed. Too many times, and you guys know where I stand on this. Too many times we have seen teams just like, oh yeah, whatever, don't worry about it. We'll just punt. Gotta win the field position battle. And it's very, very lame. I don't think you should be punting when you have the ball that close anyway. So I love that this is implemented. Force these teams to go for it. Put them in some of these uncomfortable situations and make them make a play. Go find that play that gets you 5-6 yards. Force yourself to be creative and put yourself out there a little bit. Absolutely 100% love this one. This last one, I'm very interested in. Point after. 1 point, 33-yard kick. 2 point is a try from the 2-yard line. And a 3-point conversion is 1 try from the 8. So it's 4th and goal from the 8, right? I love this idea. I like the option of being able to stay in games longer and take these shots. And if you have an offense that can do this, or if you're in a situation where you're just kind of desperate, why not? Why not reward that? And again, just force teams into trying some stuff. Keep them in games longer. For a league that doesn't get a lot of attention, the best way to do it is have exciting games. And the way you have exciting games is keeping teams close longer. And if 9 points can be scored on a touchdown, all of a sudden, that was a 2-possession game before. Now they can tie it up with 1 try, and it's a lot of drama. So I love the UFL trying this. And look, I think the NFL could be a little bit more creative with a lot of their stuff. I think the CFL could be a lot more creative with some of the stuff that they're doing. And the UFL, you're not tied to any tradition or anything like that. So yeah, try some things. Go for it. Which one's your favorite? I think mine's the no punting from inside the 50. But aside from the tush push, all of them at least have my interest a little bit. But what did you guys think? Let me know in the comments or hit me up on social media if you're listening in podcast form. Let's move to the hockey world now, and the Olympics are behind us, so it is a sprint toward the trade deadline coming up next week, and some teams already getting out front of it. We got a trade to break down, with Pittsburgh and Colorado both raising some eyebrows with an interesting move. So, the NHL, we're back into making moves, and this one, there's so many extra layers to this trade. Let's break it down. As the Pittsburgh Penguins have acquired Samuel Girard and a second-round pick from the Colorado Avalanche in exchange for Brett Kulak. The big thing here for Colorado is Kulak is cheaper. So, like that, like Kulak is solid, right? Like playoff experience was really, really good with Edmonton on the run to the Stanley Cup or Stanley Cup final anyway. And it's just a solid blue liner, proven, tested, all of those sorts of things. Former Calgary Flame, going out there and just being a really solid player. But again, at a cheaper price ticket than Girard, you're saving a couple of $1 million. This very much screams to me and everyone else in the NHL that Colorado's up to something. They're getting ready for some kind of a move to try to really put the pressure on everyone in the Central. We have seen Minnesota's loading up with the Quinn Hughes trade. Dallas, they're putting Tyler Seguin on LTIR to wrap up the season for him. And so that does feel like they are going to get ready to make some kind of a big move. Vegas in the Pacific Division making their move with Rasmus Andersson. Colorado is getting ready for something big, I think, because this is like they have had an unbelievable start to the season and they are in championship or bust mode after a couple of disappointing exits following a Stanley Cup victory. So this puts them in a better situation financially to go out and make that move. On the Pittsburgh side, I love this for the Penguins. I think this is such a smart move for Kyle Dubas. I think Girard has a very intriguing upside, and just what he is now is still a solid defenseman in the National Hockey League. And like, I kind of almost prefer him to Kulak anyway, and you get an extra pick for it. This is an excellent move for Pittsburgh, and they have been in an interesting spot for a little bit, obviously. And it is of their own doing because of the Erik Karlsson trade, but they have been in a salary cap tough spot for a while and not being overly competitive. But you also can't do a full teardown because Sidney Crosby's playing at a Hart Trophy level. So they've just kind of been hanging around for the last couple of seasons. But Dubas, I know Toronto didn't go great, but this has been almost a team-building masterclass for, again, a team that's second in the weakest division in the NHL, but still, this has been a masterclass. He hasn't gone out and made that big rebuilding type of a trade. All he has done is just make a couple small to medium-sized trades, and he just keeps winning each one. And just getting incrementally better. All right, well, this move, like, doesn't seem like it's that big of a one, but he got some organizational depth and a third-round pick for it. And this one, okay, well, that seems a little like it's, yeah, I guess they're a little bit better. That's fine. Whatever, bit of a neutral move, but they added a pick and they just got a little bit better. And so these incremental gains built it up to a point where they have a pretty solid NHL roster and an incredibly deep draft cabinet now for the next couple of seasons if they wanted to really make a move and help out Sidney Crosby here, or just really restock the cupboards post Malkin, Letang, Karlsson in a bit, post some of those guys. You can do that. This has been, again, almost a masterclass from Kyle Dubas in a situation that, again, is difficult of their own doing, but in a situation that is less than ideal. And so it's not the big teardown, and maybe it should have been a while ago, but they're in a playoff spot right now. Their first round pick from this last year, Ben Kindle, the Hitman kid, is really helping out as well. Like you are able to supplement a little bit there. That they've just, all these moves have been so smart and so well executed for Pittsburgh. And this is another one, an excellent move for Kyle Dubas and the Pittsburgh Penguins. So who won the trade? Let me know in the comments. We can chat about it down there, or you can hit me up on social media. I am at Primetime Klein. The Winter Olympics are now behind us, and it was quite the event. Some people really did improve their stock, and others, it kind of took a hit. So, it is time for a hockey stock watch. Who's up? Who's down after the Olympics? It was an incredible tournament, and it was one that had a lot of attention, and so now it's one where there's going to be a lot of discussion coming out of it. So, who helped their stock? Who hurt their stock coming out of the Olympics? Let's break it down with our Olympic stock watch. Let's start with the ups, shall we? Let's start positively. First, I don't know how you couldn't. It's Macklin Celebrini. This was his arrival to big-time play at the NHL level. He was out there with the best players in the world, and he fit in, and sometimes he thrived. This was an excellent excellent tournament for him. And it's very similar to me, to Jerome McGinley in Calgary back in 02, where I'm like, yeah, I'm really good. I'm really solid. But I mean, we'll see. Like, I'm an Olympian, but whatever. And then he goes out and he's playing with Sakic and Lemieux. And it's like, oh, well, these guys, they're not that much better than me. Maybe I'm one of the best players in the world. And he just stayed that way for like a decade. We'll see what is to come for Macklin Celebrini, but one thing is for sure is that he fit in there. And so San Jose, tough one against the Flames on Thursday night, but the Sharks, they got a star now. And they have a couple others coming. Like, Misa is just solid all around. Will Smith has been really good with him as well. Toffoli is the perfect veteran to have leading him along, and I like the move with Sherwood. Askarov, I think, needs to kind of round things out a little bit, but there's a lot of potential there in goal. I do think that this kind of puts a bit of pressure on San Jose to take advantage of this now, especially while the kid's on his entry-level contract. So he's the first one whose stock is up for me. Second is UC Saros, the goalie coming out of things for Finland. And I understand, like, Finland's defensive shell can help out a goalie a time or two. But I was kind of working on the theory that he was cooked. I know that it's been bad out in Nashville for the past little while, and you can't necessarily blame him for all of that. But there was also a few times where it's like, man, could have used the save there. And we had that with Finland at the Four Nations as well. And again, it was a banged up blue line. And if you were just, the only qualification to make that blue line was to be Finnish and have played in the National Hockey League. That was it. So they were obviously bit of a disadvantage. But again, it didn't feel like he stepped up in that way that we were used to before. So I was kind of wondering if that decline was happening. And at least from the Olympics, it doesn't seem like it. He was sharp as ever. And he was out there absolutely locked in, giving Finland an opportunity to win. And he's a reason why Nashville is in a bit of an awkward spot heading into this deadline where a lot of people feel like they should be selling. They probably will be selling, but they're also striking distance from a playoff spot. So some fascinating discussions ahead for the Nashville Predators around UC Saros. But one thing is for sure is that this goalie is still one of just the more solid goaltenders out there. And then the last one, again, this feels a little obvious, but it is Juraj Slafkovský from Team Slovakia and now with the Montreal Canadiens. He has been an absolute beast at Olympics past and now stepping up with all the other NHL players there as well, to the point where I was more worried about Canada having to face them than I was Finland when they met in the semifinals. He had that team playing that well. And again, like, he has leveled up a fair amount over the last 18 months or so. Like, he has turned into the guy that Montreal thought he would when they took him with the first overall pick. But again, much like Celebrini, to see him do that at the highest level that this sport is going to offer has to give you just all of the goosebumps for what it could turn into in Montreal and that fantastic core that they have built out with the Canadiens. So those are the ups, but with ups, there do have to come some downs. And we will start with the obvious. Yes, they won the gold medal, but the U.S. men's hockey team with a pretty pathetic display in the locker room after, I don't know how you let Kash Patel in there anyway, and then the laughing at the joke with Donald Trump. It was an awful scene, and it was something that I think kills a lot of the momentum that hockey had with heated rivalry and the growth that was coming from all of that. And I understand that the people who would be celebrating that team, celebrating with Donald Trump, wouldn't exactly be overly thrilled that heated rivalry was a lot of people's entry point for hockey, not to generalize, but, and it was an awful showing. And when you have so many highly respected women's Olympic hockey players that the Americans have, and how dominant of a program they have been for the last little while, and then finally getting over that hump and beating Canada in this and looking dominant in doing so in one of the games anyway, to have the air taken out of that balloon by a bunch of knuckle draggers is really unfortunate. I do think after it, people have handled it okay, but you still have to be mature enough in that moment to understand that that's just not the way to go about it. So a big hit to a lot of players' reputations on that U.S. men's hockey team. Up next, in an entirely different light, it's Sam Reinhart. A couple of years ago, scored 50 goals, scores the game winner to give the Florida Panthers the cup, signs a big contract with the Panthers. It was okay at the Four Nations, but this was not his tournament. He was basically invisible out there, to the point where if Crosby would have played in the gold medal game, Reinhart, I think, would have been kind of an easy out. He was not impactful in any way, shape, or form. The one goal he scored, he didn't even really mean to. It just kind of hit his stick on the way through. So for a guy who had so much going for him a couple of years ago, this was definitely, I think, a bit of a hit to the reputation of one Sam Reinhart. And then the last one is Rasmus Andersson. This is a bit of a combination, as it has not been an easy start for Rasmus or Vegas since making that trade with the Calgary Flames. And then he goes off to Sweden, and he's healthy scratched in a game where Victor Hedman played 0 shifts, but still had to be out there on the bench. And I can understand that leadership and all of those things. But for a guy who is looking for a big long-term contract at the end of this season, that wasn't really the showcase that I think he would have wanted, and it hasn't been the start in Vegas that he would have wanted either. So I think the stock is down just a little bit on the former Calgary Flames defenseman. What do you guys think? I know the U.S. men's hockey one is certainly a polarizing topic, but overall, who went up, who went down for you? Biggest winners and losers from the Olympics? Let me know in the comments, and or hit me up on social media. Again, I am at Primetime Klein. It's trade time in the National Hockey League, and with a very weird, kind of chunked up trade season, it's been tough to figure out who's a buyer, who's a seller. So that's what I'm here for. We're going to help you out. We're just going to tell you who should be buying. And then later in the week, we're going to tell you who should be selling at the NHL's trade deadline. So today is our preview of the buyers at the NHL's final stretch of the trade period. It is sometimes tough to be like, nope, we're throwing it all, chips in the middle, we're going for it. But sometimes it's necessary. And so we're looking at 3 teams that I think need to make a bit of a push in the last few days before the NHL's trade deadline. Here are the 3 teams that I think should be big buyers at the NHL's trade deadline. Number 3, the San Jose Sharks. I understand that it has felt a little ahead of schedule, but they have the salary cap space, I think, to be able to make some moves. That I might, as I was saying that felt wrong. I don't know if they do, actually. But they do have at least moves that they can make to help free that up. Anyway, but they have a ton of draft capital, they have a ton of prospect capital, and they obviously have a superstar now in Macklin Celebrini. And they've made some smart moves. The Sherwood move was excellent. Toffoli a couple of years ago was a great move. They need some help on the blue line and probably a little bit more scoring to help this team out. But when you have a player like Macklin Celebrini making under $1 million, I think you have to take advantage of it. Combine that with a Western Conference that does feel like it's a bit of a step behind right now, and the teams in front of them are teams like Nashville, teams like the Kings, teams like Seattle, easily gettable teams for San Jose. I'm not saying you have to throw all the chips in the middle to go out and get the star rental of everything, but I do think getting a couple of solid defensemen makes sense. I know, again, Flames hat here. Mackenzie Weegar's name has been thrown around a little bit. I think that's the perfect guy for the Sharks. They have 2 defensemen under contract going into next season. So why, like, you can take on a little bit of future money with Mackenzie Weegar. I think it makes sense. But when you have a kid who has now, like, you have the proof of concept with him that he can hang with the best players in the world, it's go time. And for the Sharks right now, there isn't a lot of resistance ahead of them. It didn't look great against the Flames on Thursday, but it's go time now, I think, for this team. Number 2, the Carolina Hurricanes. So often, this team has tried to make the big splash, sometimes did, got to the conference final, stumped. This is a very good roster. And now they do have the cap space to go out and make a very big splash. Draft capital, yeah, but they have the space, and they have a contract that they could move to help free up some more as well if they wanted to go and do it. I think the pressure is on. I think just being that plucky team that gets to the conference final all the time isn't enough for this group anymore. I would go so far as to saying, and yes, being one of the final 4 teams in the NHL is very hard to do, but I would say that the fact that this team hasn't been able to get over that hump yet is making them a bit of an underachiever with the talent they have had for a long time. And also, the division has been in a bit of a downstretch for the last little bit, and that has allowed them a bit of, because of the playoff format, it's allowed them a bit of an easier path to get to the conference final, where they then find out truly how far behind they are. That can't happen again this year. I think Carolina needs to be very aggressive at this season's trade deadline. And number one, I have the Montreal Canadiens, coming off of a great experience gaining run last year against Washington in the first round of the playoffs. You have such a good team. Swing of water for the working man. Sorry about that for podcast people, and that was in your ear. And I was doing it so I couldn't cough, and then I still might, but I'm just so choked up about Montreal. I love this roster. Montreal was a big win for us last year, saying that they were going to be a playoff team. Cashing that ticket helped out a lot. This year, all those pieces have evolved. You have you have a blue line that every team dreams of being able to construct. And you have hit on your offensive guys with Slafkovsky, with Caulfield, with Suzuki. But it is clear that they do need a little bit of help there. And maybe in some goal suppression as well. But they are in a spot. We did hot takes on the radio here in Calgary this week. My hot take was that this team should be going to the Stanley Cup. And I genuinely think they can do that. In a year, again, where the Florida Panthers are having a bit of a downstretch right now. Toronto is having a downstretch right now. They would be in a spot where it would be Detroit in the first round, Tampa Bay, who's very good, in the second, and then you get the winner of, again, what I believe to be the worst conference in the, or worst division in the NHL, coming up in the conference finals. I think there's a path there. I think, again, and they have been in the past, I think it's time to be aggressive and really go all in with an incredibly talented young group in Montreal. So the Habs are the number one buyer for me at the NHL's trade deadline. Obviously, with a list of only 3, there are going to be teams that we missed, but who is the number one team that you think should be going out and making those big moves? Let me know in the comments and we can chat about it there, or hit me up on social media. I am at Primetime Klein on Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. So make sure you give me a follow there so you can keep up to date with everything going on with Couch Potato Diary. In the boxing world, Ryan Garcia, big reputation. Maybe not the best reputation, but a big reputation. And there's been a lot of discussion about what he is, what he isn't, who he could be, who he is at the moment. But one thing we didn't know is if he could get to the high level again. And last weekend, he did. Let's take a look at Ryan Garcia's just rocketing back into the boxing spotlight. So Ryan Garcia with an excellent performance over the weekend that I think opened a lot of eyes. And we'll talk about what it means and everything like that. But first and foremost, he was spectacular. I know there's a lot with him, and he's not my favorite dude, but there is no denying from 23 seconds in where he's dropping Mario Barrios to the rest of the fight, this was an absolutely spectacular and dominant performance from Ryan Garcia. And look, I don't know if we learn a whole lot from this because of how bad Barrios was, but we've seen a lot of stinkers out of Garcia. So for him to do this against anybody is hugely important. No, there was not a lot of resistance coming back. No, he didn't have to even remotely figure out what plan B was. But he was still able to go out there and implement his game plan and look that good. He looked motivated. He looked talented. And this has been a bit of the frustration over the last little bit, is that a lot of people thought this was in there. And it was just a whole lot of the mental makeup that was not allowing him to get that out there. Well, again, maybe not against the toughest opponent, but he was able to get it out there on Saturday. And it is at least a little bit intriguing for him. There's still a long way to go, though, for Ryan Garcia. He still has a lot to prove. He did not show in this fight that he can handle any sort of adversity. One fight isn't going to change anyone's perception that this guy can stay focused to be a high-level boxer and have an extended run at the championship level. It's one fight. It's one good fight against one guy who we'll talk about in a second, but just killed his stock. But it's still one fight, and it's one stepping stone, but it's a long way to go for him to get back into a lot of people's good graces, for us to just fully buy in to Ryan Garcia being 100% back. So he showed everything that he could in this fight, but there are still many, many questions that need to be answered over the next probably couple of years before we're really back into taking this guy fully seriously. On the other side, Barrios just killed his stock. Like, no one is going to take him seriously for a very long time. And this is the problem with taking the fights against these star attractions, is that, yes, this is the biggest stage that you will fight on. And if you can put on a good performance, it can set you up for life. Whether it's an upset win or just a great showing that lets you kind of stay here on the pay-per-view championship level. But when it's bad, no one is like, oh, well, no, I really liked his fights against blah, 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 blah. No casual is talking about that. Very few people are discussing what this guy has done in other performances. This was the biggest stage in front of the most eyeballs that he had to fight in front of, and he was dreadful. There was no resistance coming back. There was no altering of a game plan. There was no dealing with anything other than just kind of turtling there for 12 rounds. This was the type of fight that absolutely kills a boxer's brand. And so he is going to have some incredibly high-level performances coming out of this fight against guys that we've heard of, for people to just kind of push all of that to the background. So, interesting? Yeah, not so much anymore. Mario Barrios, a very, very difficult night for him against Ryan Garcia. So what's next for Ryan Garcia? He made the call out for Shakur Stevenson. I think that's the fight that has to happen now. Stevenson, his brand has never been higher, coming off of a great performance against Teofimo Lopez earlier in the month. Just a complete dominance in that fight. And now you have Garcia looking the best that he has looked in a very long time. And that, I feel like, it was the call out. It was the direction. Like, Stevenson was on the broadcast a lot on DAZN on Saturday. Those guys are heading for a collision. And so this is one of the biggest fights you can make in that division right now. I think you have to do that. I think it makes all the sense in the world for Stevenson and Garcia to face each other. It's one of those, like, they made the call out. Fine, go for it. Now, if the trouble for Garcia is Stevenson's very difficult to look good against. And even if, like, it's a competitive fight, it's tough to style on that guy. And so if we're looking for a fight where Garcia could answer all of the questions, that would be it. I would not anticipate him doing that, but that would be it. If he can solve the Stevenson Rubik's Cube, then all of a sudden it's superstardom for him. And he's already, like, popularity-wise, he's already a superstar. But we're talking about, like, amongst boxing rankings and everything like that, super duper star, 100%, if he is able to figure that one out. So that's probably the next direction, I would say, for a Ryan Garcia fight. What did you guys make of the fights on Saturday? Overall, I thought it was a really, really strong card on DAZN. What was able to watch tip to tail. It was a very, very fun night of fights, I thought. But what did you guys think? Let me know in the comments, and what would you like to see next for Ryan Garcia? Hit me up again in the comments, and we can chat about that. Or if you're, again, listening on the podcast, head over to my social media accounts. I am at Primetime Klein on X, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. Normally, we do these live, haven't for a couple of weeks, but we are going to get back to doing these live very, very soon. And so because of that, make sure you check things out over on youtube.com/@CouchPotatoDiary, twitch.tv/PrimetimePK, and kick.com/PrimetimePK. Let's move into the pro wrestling world now. The WWE is just hours away now from Elimination Chamber, and the build-up to it has been all right, but there's one thing that's really stood out to me, and one thing I've really, really enjoyed from WWE programming as of late, and that's a lot of people have their eyes on the prize. Let's talk about it in this Raw recap. So, Monday Night Raw, wrapping things up on the road to Elimination Chamber in Chicago this upcoming weekend. By the way, the plan right now is to go live on twitch.tv/PrimetimePK, youtube.com/@CouchPotatoDiary, and kick.com/ Primetime PK. There we go. That's the plan anyway, once Elimination Chamber is done on Saturday night. But building up to it, the one thing I've really liked about the WWE on both brands over the last few weeks, really, is how many people are focusing and how much of the show is dedicated to the pursuit of the world championship. And this was something, like, I know that the Ruthless Aggression era, Triple H, like WrestleMania 19, 20, like that era of Triple H, it isn't everyone's favorite, and I can understand why. Definitely lose to Booker T at WrestleMania 19. But the one thing that I really loved about that character is you knew what his motivations were. Swing of water for the working man. You knew what Triple H's motivations were in that, like, 03, 04, 05 range. Everything in his life, in that character's life, focused on being the world's heavyweight champion. And it feels like that is being brought into it now, where in times when we did have some part-time champions, right, with the Brock Lesnar's and some of those guys, a lot of the talk when it would go to a Roman Reigns or a Seth Rollins or a whoever is, all right, this is going to get a lot of the prestige back for the title. And it just felt like it was a little bit more of an afterthought and oh yeah, well, and you know, it's cool to be champion, so we're just gonna go for the title. But now it feels like it is the main focal point of the show, and even guys in like the Intercontinental title range still have kind of that eye to it. And AEW is doing this a little bit as well, and you can at least see when there are some side quests for these guys, how it all kind of focuses back then on becoming the world heavyweight champion after the fact. So this is something I really, really liked. It was kind of that way in the Attitude Era too, where like Stone Cold would be the champion. Obviously, The Rock wants to be the champ. Obviously, Kurt Angle wants to be the champ. Obviously, Undertaker wants to be the champ. Obviously, Triple H wants to be the champion. And even if those guys had to be like, okay, it's Triple H against The Undertaker, but it is because they want to get back to being the world heavyweight champion. And I think someone took it a little bit too, like, this needs to be our mantra, where it's more about personal conflict than pushing for this prop that we have. And like, yes, like, you do need to have that, right? But at the end, like, that needs to be the big prize, right? That needs to be the big thing at the end of the rainbow, is becoming the world heavyweight champion. And I think WWE has done an awesome job with like Punk and Roman and like Finn Balor, where it is everything that would justify the last little bit is like, oh no, I'm refocused on being the champion. Jey Uso trying to get back to that, just ripping people's biceps up to try to get back to that. But like Seth Rollins, when he was going, like, creates this vision so that he could be the champion, so that he can mold the future of the WWE in the way that he wants. LA Knight wrestling and trying to get into those spots to validate what he is doing. Sami Zayn needs it to validate his entire career. Cody Rhodes to justify him being the QB1. Drew McIntyre needing to hold on to it after not being able to have it for so long, just to prove that he is the best. Jacob Fatu to prove that this whole journey has been worth it. All of these guys right now, maybe their focus is on one or two other dudes, but they always have that eye to the world championship. And so it makes everything else feel more important. The one thing that I wish came with it, and this is on both shows, both promotions, WWE and AEW, but I wish wins and losses then meant more, right? Like, because you have these high stakes, you could have a world where every match mattered a little bit more. Instead, what they do is they have these high stakes, so we can't have these guys lose these matches, except for Sami Zayn, apparently. And we have to go in a different direction. And it's a run and finish here, it's a this, there, it's a count out, it's a whatever. And you never really get any. I think the one kind of like pivot from, okay, everyone's focusing on the title. There's so much that goes into making that the key thing. And so because of that, you could make wins and losses mean so much in both companies right now. And I don't know, AEW is kind of getting back to that, but they've gone through an 18-month stretch where like, you can pencil in, okay, distraction finish, run and finish. The referee is just looking at a guy with a screwdriver, but that's fine, whatever. That's frustrating. If you can get it back to there are going to be clean wins, clean losses, and actual stakes and actual like consequences, and then stories pivoting off of that, that goes a really long way to creating a full, well-rounded television program in the wrestling world. But I like this renewed focus on the World Heavyweight Championship and the WWE Championship on WWE programming and the AEW title over in All Elite Wrestling. So am I off on this? Because it did to me feel like there was a stretch where the title was just like, oh, and by the way, it's there at some point. But really we want to wrestle Brock Lesnar because he's a dirty part-timer or something along those lines. Am I off on this, or what do you guys think about the direction? This is mainly about Raw, but there is a little bit of it with AEW as well. Let me know in the comments, or hit me up on social media. I am at Primetime Klein. And for wrestling fans, if you just want the wrestling content, I know Couch Potato Diary, it is a all sports podcast. I understand that that's not exactly every wrestling fan's jam. So, we created Living Room Lariat. It is the all wrestling podcast from Couch Potato Diary. You'll still get some of the wrestling stuff on the flagship Couch Potato Diary, but a lot of the wrestling content goes over to Living Room Lariat. Got some bonus stuff over there right now. So check that out. Again, wherever you get your podcasts. That is going to do it for the show today. Again, as always, we are presented by Sea of Dead. Head over to seaofdead403.ca for all that great Calgary swag. We are hoping to go live. I say we, it's me. Hoping to go live after Elimination Chamber on Saturday night. We're going to be going live again, hopefully playing around with some stuff on here. So hopefully going live on YouTube, Twitch, and Kick once the show is done on Saturday night. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you're watching, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and leave a comment to let me know what you thought, what you liked, what you didn't like about the show, and let me know what you'd like to see differently. You can also follow the show on in podcast form. Again, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Couch Potato Diary, or for the wrestling, check out Living Room Lariat. Also, I haven't put this out there a ton, but you can email the show, couchpotatodiary@yahoo.com. Any suggestions for the show? Is there stuff you want to talk about more? Is there stuff you don't want to talk about more? Let me know. Bunch of different places that you can do it. But again, really trying to grow this so we can do it more consistently. That would be a lot of help if you guys just liked, left reviews, commented, those sorts of things. Helps me out a ton. So thank you guys so much for hanging out today, and I'll talk with all of you later.